Considered one of Star Trek Voyager's best episodes, Message in a Bottle would combine great story and humor to come out on top. But what's the story behind this episode? Well, in today's episode of Backtrek, we'll find out. With a story by Rick Williams and a teleplay by Lisa Klink, Message in a Bottle would become a milestone in Voyager's history. Finally, Starfleet would know what happened to the ship, and the crew could have some new feelings and situations to deal with via the people they left behind. Lisa Klink is a writer who wrote many episodes of Star Trek Voyager, such as Blood Fever, Favorite Son, and Displaced, and was responsible for a number of Voyager teleplays, including Resistance, Innocence, Scientific Method, and the Omega Directive. Oh, and also did the teleplay for the Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode, Hippocratic Oath. Rick Williams, on the other hand, would only write this one episode, and for me that's unfortunate. It seems the combination of the two could have really worked out well throughout Voyager's run. But according to his IMDb page, Message in a Bottle was his only writing credit ever. Nancy Malone was the director on this episode, and she had also directed the Season 3 Voyager episode Coda. But she seems to have had a long and fruitful acting career, being in shows like The Outer Limits and Ironside. Though I didn't realize it until doing research for this episode, I actually knew who she was, and I was shocked to find out that she starred in one of my favorite Twilight Zone the Original Series episodes, Stopover in a Quiet Town. She also has a long list of writing and producer credits to her name, everything from Cagney and Lacey through to Beverly Hills 90210. Robert Picardo himself, who plays the Doctor, actually contributed to the script as well, in the form of little humorous additions. Picardo explains, "I had gotten into the habit of calling Brandon Braga with joke suggestions, and I scored pretty well in Message in a Bottle. I think I had 6 jokes that were mine in that episode." One specific humorous instance suggested by Picardo was in regards to the EMH's neck. Picardo recalls, "In the scene with the EMH Mark II, my scripted line was, 'Stop breathing down my neck.' I said to Brannon, 'You know, we don't really breathe, right?' He said, 'It's just a human expression.' And that troubled me, so I suggested the following 2 lines.
This is all very complicated.
Stop breathing down my neck.
My breathing is merely a simulation.
So is my neck. Stop it anyway."
Actor Andy Dick was offered the role of the EMH Mark II after letting Brandon Braga, who was a friend of the performer, know that he would be interested in making an appearance on Star Trek Voyager. He was a casual fan of Star Trek and thought it would be a challenge for him to do an episode.
I remember saying to him, my biggest fear is that when this episode airs, that TV Guide will do a little close-up box about it. And it'll say something like, Picardo and Dick a treat, or Picardo and Dick inseparable. Picardo and Dick together forever. It seemed to give me a note of caution.
Although Andy Dick found that he extremely liked his Voyager character, he also found that portraying the EMH Mark II took him into very unfamiliar territory. He recalls, "I was right in thinking that it would be a challenge for me. It was really an eclectic style of acting. It's like doing a French period drama and then doing Shakespeare. It was completely different from what I had ever done before. I mean, there's no comparing how we did news radio to how they did Voyager. None." The chemistry between Robert Picardo and Andy Dick wasn't merely on screen either. Behind the scenes, they'd often be joking, with Picardo usually getting in the last zinger, and Andy would end up rolling in the aisles.
When I first met Andy, he said to me, "Your name Picardo is so close to Captain Picard. You get teased a lot for that?" And I said, "Wait a minute, your name is Andy Dick and you're going to make fun of mine?" And that was our icebreaker. So then we had after that, we would joke about anything.
Initially, Robert Picardo was nervous about this episode's script, because in his opinion, Star Trek has never been well known for its comedy, and the situations they were put in were very funny. So there was a lot of high anxiety and panic for Picardo.
When the show aired, we got a review in USA Today that called Andy Dick and I the Fraser and Niles of outer space, because we do have some very high-paced comedy scenes together where we natter at each other, and it does sound a little Frasier-like. And because I love that show and both those actors, I thought that was about the highest compliment we could have gotten.
But in the end, it all meshed together brilliantly, proving that Picardo can not only do serious roles, but has an aptitude for comedic roles. And just a little bit of trivia for you, the two Starfleet officers beaming over to the bridge of the Prometheus near the end of the episode were actually played by two regular DS9 extras. And the reason for that? Well, they already had the current gray-black Starfleet uniforms fitted to them, which meant saving a little money on the costumes budget. The USS Prometheus was designed by senior illustrator Rick Sternbach. Sternbach himself had an extensive career in Star Trek, from Star Trek the Motion Picture, through The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. He also was the scenic artist for Star Trek Nemesis. You can't really watch Star Trek without seeing his work everywhere. He designed hundreds of props, such as the pad, the tricorder, and the communicator from the TNG-era shows. And along with Herman Zimmerman, would go on to design Deep Space Nine, and would himself design the USS Voyager. So it's no surprise that he would be the designer of the Prometheus. And to this day, the Prometheus remains a fan favorite starship design. The CGI model itself was rendered by Foundation Imaging. Foundation Imaging was responsible for many Star Trek CGI elements in the series, along with CGI elements in shows like Babylon 5. This episode would also see the Romulan D'Deridex warbird finally brought to CGI life, and Message in a Bottle marks the first time a D'Deridex-class warbird was actually destroyed on screen. If you're a Star Trek nitpicker, then you might have noticed a few mistakes in this episode. One being that when the Doctor is transferred from Voyager to the Alpha Quadrant, his mobile emitter suddenly disappears rather than falling to the floor. Another mistake would be that the Doctor seems unaware of the Dominion. The episode makes it clear that it takes place before Deep Space Nine's In the Pale Moonlight, as the Romulans are not yet involved in the Dominion War. However, the Federation was aware of the Dominion's existence since mid-2370, as is established in the Deep Space Nine episode Rules of Acquisition, and the Dominion were encountered in the Deep Space Nine episode The Jem'Hadar, and of course The Search Part 1, and that's months before Voyager's departure. So given that information, it would be highly unlikely that the Doctor, with all his interspecies medical knowledge, would not have known at least a little about the Dominion. Harry Kim's failure to successfully program a replacement EMH in this episode is also a problem, as less than a season later, in the episode Nothing Human, he succeeds with the Krell-Moset hologram. Maybe it's simply easier to duplicate and build from an existing personality, rather than trying to reconstruct an entire artificial one. But then that begs the question, why didn't he just use an existing holographic personality to create a new Doctor in the first place? And of course, normal production errors do exist in this episode, such as the main view screen of the Prometheus shows a stationary starfield twice, even though the ship is traveling at high warp. This episode would also clear up some lingering questions left behind in the Voyager episode Eye of the Needle, as it seems that the Romulan Telek Ramor from that episode did not or could not make arrangements to send Voyager's personal letters to their families prior to his death. As originally scripted, Message in a Bottle was supposed to end with the Doctor rejoining the crew and heading to the mess hall to tell everyone the good news. But somehow that scene didn't feel right. There were far too many people involved. So, in the end, the final scene was rewritten to be in sickbay, with Janeway, Chakotay, Tuvok, and the Doctor, and Janeway delivering the heartfelt line that would end the episode.
60,000 light years. Seems a little closer today.
Mulgrew's delivery of that line was, as always, perfectly on point. And lastly, in an effort to be thorough, I thought I'd include some of the trailers for the episode. I just want to apologize in advance for their quality. Unfortunately, they were the best I could find, and I hope you enjoy their craziness.
Run-ins,
You're rude. Rude.
Romulans,
Were you bent to spy on us?
and renegade holograms.
You're the inferior program.
Inferior.
The next Voyager begins with one confrontation after another, and ends with the ultimate confrontation.
You killed him?
He wasn't responding to diplomacy.
Be there when a terrifying new enemy emerges.
I doubt we've seen the last of him.
An all-new Voyager.
A beacon of hope
You may be our only chance.
lights the way home,
Far be it from me to turn down an opportunity to become a hero.
but a mission for help goes haywire.
What the hell are you doing in my sick bed?
Can two holographic doctors destroy the enemy
You're the Mark 1 EMH, the inferior program.
before they destroy each other?
I'm a doctor, not a commando.
On the next Star Trek Voyager.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this short little trip into the behind the scenes of Voyager's Message in a Bottle. What did you think of the episode? What do you think of these short little behind the scenes videos? Well, leave me a comment in the section below. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, hitting that little bell icon so you won't miss a single video we release. Want to help the channel out behind the scenes? Then consider becoming a channel patron. The link to our Patreon account is in the description below. Thanks again for watching. Live long and prosper.